Good morning. Welcome to Parent Power Hour. Take a minute and get settled. Not getting any better. All right, good morning. Let's make sure everybody can hear. Welcome to Parent Power Hour. I am Kristen, and I am with New Minds Enrichment, and I'm trying to make sure I don't have too many technical. There you go. Now you can see me a little better. I went and opened up the window so we could have some natural light, but that didn't really seem to do the trick either. So got to get a little extra light going on here. Welcome. So glad you're here this morning. It's a Wednesday morning. This is episode 8 for us here on NewMinds.tv. And New Minds Enrichment is bringing STEAM programs for kids, Parent Power Hour for adults, for self-development, all kinds of amazing things going on the hour, every hour from 9 o'clock, actually now from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 p.m. At 8 a.m., we have a brand new show. We just started this morning, and it is actually our first international show. It is a STEAM al-Arabiya. That means STEAM in Arabic. That's right. If you already speak Arabic, then get in there with your kiddos. Have some great fun. Today, they made straw rockets, which was pretty awesome. It is 3 p.m. in Beirut, where it's being filmed or recorded. Filmed. I always pipe up with this like 1993 like verbiage that millennials don't get. Although people say I'm technically a millennial, we can argue. I'm gonna scoot back a little bit. We can argue about that later. I'm not, for the record. Of course, according to my opinion, I'm not. I'm also not a boomer, so we won't go there either. Well, welcome to Parent Power Hour. Good morning, Shay. So happy to see you. Happy that others are here as well. And what we do here during this time together is self-improvement, is personal development, is things that we're working on to better ourselves so that we can be better and support our families and those we love with more strength, being more fully who we're meant to be, feeling that strong connection between our why, our purpose, and finding tips and strategies and ways that we can stay connected to that no matter what challenges come our way, whether it is a pandemic or if it is a math worksheet with your kiddo that you're not used to having to do every single day. Everybody does homework, we all get that, but we can all acknowledge and definitely identify with the fact that this is different. And that's kind of how we started last week. That's not kind of, that is how we started last week on our first few episodes, is acknowledging that difference, acknowledging and saying this is different. Maybe we put labels on it if that helps you cope, if that helps you find a way to frame your understanding. Ultimately, what we're doing is we're attempting to make meaning of our daily experience. And a lot of times that's messy. It's messy and it's okay. And it's going to probably be messy for a little while. And whenever we're experiencing something new, whenever we are running into experiences, challenges, personalities, situations, whatever the case is, scenarios, think of all those words, just pull them out. And whenever we're experiencing something new, that means that we're growing and we're learning and we're changing. And that is where we have the opportunity to thrive. We have the opportunity to show others around us how more strongly we are connected to ourselves, who we're meant to be, whether that is as a parent, as a brother, as a sister, as a father, as a mother, in my case, as an auntie living in the house with my sister and her husband and 2 kiddos. Whatever your role may be, that you're able to be more fully who you are and be more fully present, right, for those around you. Because when we have more clarity on who we are, when we have more clarity on our purpose, we can be more fully present. And this sense of overwhelm that we're all navigating, whether it's in a crisis or whether it's working through a worksheet, the sense of overwhelm is something that really brings out who you are. And it can either bring out the best in us, or it can bring out the parts of us where like, well, that didn't go the way I wanted it to go. And I'd like to live with this for just a second and unpack that part, that we can often be so hard on ourselves. Like while we are doing all of this work, and while we are taking time for ourselves so that we can be better for those around us that we love, we can also be very hard on ourselves. And I'm going to preach to myself also right now, because when we say, well, I should be this and I should be that, and I shouldn't have gotten frustrated at my 3rd grader for not doing their math worksheet in this way, and I shouldn't have been so stressed out, or I shouldn't have said this, and we have all of these rules about who we think we should be and how we think we should react. And we also have goals, and there's a difference there. I'm sure you see it, that this work that we're doing here together is more about living fully and present and being more present into who we are meant to be, and recognizing that at times that means going straight forward towards that goal, towards that list of things that you have to do with determination, and additionally being aware of our actions and how we are around others and how our actions affect others. And so because of that, because of our deep sense of self-awareness and because our sense of purpose, we can also often be really hard on ourselves. I didn't really mean to go so severely this direction with our chat today, but it just kind of came up when I was thinking about, this whole story I'm telling inside of my head, and how I'm navigating my experience, how I have all these expectations, and how I have these goals. Not necessarily, I'm gonna edit that word, not expectations. What I have is all of these goals and all of these plans for who I want to be, and the feelings and desires and my why, right? And so when those things don't happen, I get frustrated. I get really upset. Or, at the end of the day, when I'm reviewing my day, I'm like, I really wish I would not have said X, Y, and Z to my sister. Or I wish I would have said X, Y, and Z to my 4-year-old nephew. There are these moments where we start, when we are self-reflective, that we move really quickly into self-judgment. So I don't know if that's for anybody today. I hope it is. It just came out of my thoughts of where we're at right now, and that a lot of times when we are so focused on our goals and our dreams and living into who we are, living into our why, that we end up being really hard on ourselves. And to, at the end of the day, say, well, that didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. You know what? I'm going to go to sleep and start again tomorrow. Nothing is permanent. Hey, Tina. Hey, Alexis. Yes, Dubai's in the house. That makes me happy. You guys missed it. We just, you didn't miss it, but I announced that we started our STEAM Al Arabiya. So you guys pass it on to the Arabic team there at ASD every Wednesday and Friday at 8 a.m. our time, so 4 3 p.m. Beirut time. I think that means it's 4 p.m. Dubai time. We're doing STEAM in Arabic with our Lebanon team. They're going live. So it's super fun. And of course, all of those videos are on our newminds.tv channel that are going to be collected. Today was the first one. So when you go there later on today, I haven't uploaded it yet. I'm going to do that after this. But when you go there, as well as our page, you'll have all access to all the videos. So I was just kind of going into a little bit of a tangent. It must be for someone, because it came out of what was happening in here, that how hard we are on ourselves, right? How we end up looking back at the end of our day, and instead of saying, okay, that was awesome. And we do have some days like that, and that is so great. Live with those, be happy with those. But at the same time, I think the majority of us, especially those of us who are self-reflective and who are really intentional with our words and our purpose and our interactions that we have with each other, we end up being super hard on ourselves. And some of that is that perfectionism. Some of it is compensating for control and trying to anticipate any sort of solutions that we can have to all the unpredictable things that we're experiencing day by day. There's millions of reasons, and there's tons of books written on that. We won't go there. That's going to take way too long on that tangent. But ultimately, I'd like to encourage you that let's switch our thinking from being so hard on ourselves to back to that authenticity, back to that transparency, go back to that why, go back to how you can model for those that you care about, whether that's your kiddos at home, or if you have little ones that are not of the brain development stage yet of this level of a conversation. Maybe it's with your partner or any other buddy that's in your house, any other buddies and bodies in your house, that you're still able to say, you know, that didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. Can I try that again? Even if it's in the moment. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many times I did that in teaching. For those of you who don't know, I was in classrooms in education, working with kids for 15 years, and I was an elementary music teacher. And so I didn't just teach 20 kids every year. No, I taught like 750 kids every year. It's a little bit of a different experience when you're a specialist, especially in elementary schools. And over the years, as I was, refining my pedagogical approach, I was also refining my what's commonly referred to in education as your classroom management, your behavior management. And I would find myself, trying out new approaches, trying out new ways with the kids of more than just, here's a chart to reflect your ideas, but more of my responsibility in taking care of them and helping them to grow into better human beings. And a lot of times I would, give a direction, especially with the 4th and 5th graders who were, 9, 10, 11 years old. I would find that, and kids will let you know right away if what you've said works or doesn't work. I'd say probably kindergarten and higher for sure. I'm trying to think if like pre-K. It depends. It depends if it's like a 4 or 5-year-old in pre-K, but from kindergarten and higher, if you're saying something to a kid and it didn't go right, you're gonna know right away. And so I think that's also a little bit of a unique experience in our practice as educators, is that we have that immediate feedback. Here with Parent Power Hour, it's like, okay, I'll wait for you guys to comment and then I'll know how did things go. Whereas if I was in front of a room of 17, good morning, is it Nilam? Good morning. If I pronounce your name incorrectly, I'm so sorry. It's really important for me to pronounce people's names correctly. So if you put up a pronunciation for me, I'll do better at it. But what we're kind of talking about is like the honesty that kids will honest feedback that you'll get right away. And so when I would try out new approaches with kids, it's really helpful to say to them, just be like, let me think of an example. So what I would do when being careful and giving instructions or stating, so one of the practices that you will find helpful possibly with your own children, and one of the practices that I found helpful in my classroom was saying out loud the desired behavior instead of the not one. Okay, so we're dipping into parenting for a second, and don't worry, we'll come back to some other things, and I'll bring it all back in. Don't worry. So what you do instead of saying don't touch, and this is not for, I was going to say don't touch the hot stove. That is not the right example. And that one, get to that, do not do that thing right away. So, okay, so a common example in a classroom would be all the kids are all talking at once, and instead of saying, everybody stop talking, just stop talking, you're interrupting, just everybody stop talking. That's not going to work, because what I've just said to them is talking. They didn't hear the stop. First of all, they couldn't hear me because they're all talking. Instead, to state the desired behavior, which is, I will answer your questions when I see your hands raised, or I answer questions after students raise their hands. So putting yourself in that position of, here's what I do when you do, instead of don't do. And so to bring that back to what I was kind of getting to before, is when I was practicing that skill, when I was, my first few years of doing it, was so cumbersome. And I'd be like, everybody, I just, I'm only going to, I would fumble over it so terribly. And even right now, I'm like having a hard time recalling what I used to say that was not the right way. And the kids would be like, just didn't respond to whatever the desired behavior I was looking for. So, okay, hey, you guys, you know what? We're all going to pause for a second. I'm going to pause for a second. I'd like to try that again. That didn't really come out for me the way I wanted it to. What I'm hoping to do is to be better at saying things to you so that's more clear. So let me try that again. All right, guys? And I mean, they'll be like, we don't care. They're like 8 years old. They don't care. 11 years old. They don't, middle school and high school, they for sure don't care. They're like, I don't care. I understood you the first time. Okay, I'd like a second chance to practice. Here's what I was intending to say. What I'd like to say is, and then continue on with your desired behavior, with your way that you're approaching how you're communicating with people. And so that ties over to us as well in our homes, as we are all together, whether you're interacting with your child or the other adults in your home, as you're not being so hard on yourself. That's kind of the focus of what we're talking about for a second, is even in that moment, if you're in a crucial conversation, if you're in a conversation about something that's tough or hard, if someone's breaking down around you emotionally and you're breaking down, and you're not being the vision of yourself that you have in that moment. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to model for you guys. Okay, here's what you would do. Okay, we're both crying. We're both upset. This isn't going the way that I wanted it to go. I actually didn't say what I wanted to say. What I want to say is, and coming from a place of sincerity, right? That has such a different tone than if you are saying something like, okay, stop. This isn't going the way I wanted it to go. Here's what I actually wanted to say. That's completely different. It's the same words, but it's your tone, right? And this is where I'm glad for a live video and audio, so we can practice with each other, or you can watch me practice. This idea of your tone, your sincerity, your ease with yourself, that will translate to your ease and your flexibility and your recognition that we are all growing, that we are all in this together, all in this together. High School Musical, I think that was. That we're all in this together, that we are all human. And while we have high hopes and high dreams and high ambitions, goals for ourselves, that we can also be super hard on ourselves. And to also recognize your own humanity and say, all right, this isn't going the way I wanted it to go. I'm going to try that again. And you can either process that out loud while you're practicing it, while it's still new to you, and you can say that to the people around you, or you can keep it in your head if that's another level of vulnerability that you're not quite ready for. while things are breaking down, while you feel that emotion. And that's how we're going to segue. Yes, I knew I would find it. How we're going to segue into what we're actually going to talk about today, which are our emotions versus feelings. And how when you're feeling that it's a feeling, and recognize how that feels in your body. Because a lot of times when we're in these kinds of conversations, when things are tough, when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, you feel it in your body. You're the adults. I'm talking to all of you as adults now. You know yourself. You know what it feels like when you can't breathe, you're short of breath, when you start to need to like, whew, I need to relax my shoulders. An example I can give you is there were a few years where I was in pretty consistent, challenging conversations with some coworkers. I'm gonna breathe for a second because I already feel it in my body right now. I do. There were several years where it was very negative work environment, not anywhere close to where I'm working right now. It's another podcast. I'll go back into that later. But it used to be I was in these conversations that were constantly negative. They were constantly, demeaning, put downing, belittling of who I was as a human, in just all around negative conversations. And it didn't matter how much I skilled up, how much peace I had in my heart, how much love and joy and all of the wonderful things I had been working on, manifesting within myself to bring to that conversation. But anytime I would have a conversation with this one person in particular, it had always been just years and years and years of negative experiences. And even when I would see this person, my body would start to tense up. And I would start even talking about this person right now, like I'm short of breath. I can feel my heart starting to race. My palms are actually getting sweaty. And it's been 5 years since I've had really intense, consistent negative interactions with this person that is very unhealthy, has since, fired from this person's position because of unhealthy things, taking advantage of this person's position of leadership. And ultimately, my point right now is that we hold our stress, we hold our negative feelings and our emotions in our bodies, and our bodies remember that. So as adults, we recognize when we're starting to move and veer off path a little bit, and we can feel it in our bodies when we start to go towards, I'm starting to get, it's coming back again. I can feel it. My heart's starting to race. My shoulders are up, like literally right now. You've probably just seen, whew. So I tell myself, like, this is a feeling. This is not, or actually, yeah, this is not who I am. This is not what I am. This is not who I want to be, kind of referring back to a goal, a conversation we had a few days ago about, or maybe it was yesterday. Every day is like a month. I don't even know right now. That we're keeping in the front of our mind, who do we want to be at the end of this? What is my ultimate why? And when we start to get in those conversations, in those situations again, where we feel that tenseness, that's actually a signal to your body, or that your body is signaling your brain that something has to change. Your body is giving you a signal that's saying, hey, wait a minute, we got to learn something here. What's happening is that your body's starting to interpret the emotions, and the emotions are telling you how to pay attention. Excuse me 1 second. Let me make sure this isn't about a technical issue. No, it's not. Okay. So here we are. The segue that I'm going to step into right now is actually a part I just underlined when I was researching about some ways that I can pass on some love to you all today. Is that you can actually end up, what you should do is to tell yourself that your emotions are just telling you to pay attention or to speak up. And what you do with those emotions is that is what determines who you are. What you do with those emotions determines how you do feel about the end of your day. That your automatic emotions of how you are having a physical, instinctive reaction to, they don't have to be in charge. And this goes for your kiddos. Older kiddos, probably second grade and higher, 8 years old or so and higher, they're at a better part. 8, 9, 10, it's still really gray. Middle school, middle school is all the emotions. However, this is even more important for them, right? That your emotions are not who you are. It is a triggered reaction. It's a physical reaction. It's something that is an unplanned for. It's subconscious, right? That's what your emotions are. And our emotion can be generated, or our feelings are generated by our emotions. Okay, so just hang with me for a second. We're gonna get to the bottom of this. We can sense our emotions in any moment. We can sense what's happening in our bodies, but the difference is how we choose to override that by defining what we feel. Especially as an adult, as a parent, you're helping your children navigate these choices of how you feel. You can override the definition of that emotion by defining what you want to feel. Instead of being upset with myself, instead of being, in front of this group of 20 fifth graders who are all talking at once, it does something physically to my body, or I'm like, oh, I'm so frustrated. I can't do the thing I'm supposed to be doing. I'm teaching. That's straight up emotion. That's straight up my physical response. And I talked about this a few days ago. I will turn red. That's another thing kids are really good. I'm starting to do it right now. That's another thing that kids are really good about, is letting you know, like, physically we can see there's something that's not okay with you. And as the adult who's trying to work on yourself, you're like, I have to choose. I have to choose right now what my emotion is actually going, or what my feeling is going to be. What I can choose what to feel. So emotions are that instinctive part. It's usually a triggering event that generates an emotional response. The emotional responses are what we a lot of times call our feelings, and that is fear, that's anger, that's frustration, that's upset, that's amusement, it's sadness, it's love, it's joy. And often the emotional response happens without much of our brain in charge at all. And that's that reptilian brain. That's that part. And I usually end up doing my little brain model. That's not the talking hand. That's a brain model. And there's this part, this frontal cortex of our lobe. I'm gonna not use the technical terms because I end up fumbling over them and then I get really embarrassed. But it's the front part of our brain. That's the reptilian part of our brain. And if someone's on here in Parent Power Hour, Tina and Alexis, and Elizabeth, if you guys, hey Elizabeth, yay, I'm so glad you're here. Pop in here with the words that I'm not doing well at right now. That'll help me feel supported. But there's that part of our brain that's that responsive part, right? And that's the reason why we often refer to in English, we say we flip our lid, is what you've done is you've just let go of that logical, rational thinking part of your brain, and that's gone. And you're only thinking with this prefrontal cortex, frontal lobe part of your brain, that reptilian responsive part of your brain, which in children up until, well, male and female, it varies, but up until certain ages, that is a physically larger part of their brains than that logical thinking. And you've seen it. You've seen it in your kids. You see it every day. You see it by the minute that they are 80 to 95% of their time that reptilian responsive part of their brain. And so that's where our emotions come from. And that's the part where we don't necessarily always have a pre-planned idea of what our emotions are going to be. If you're just joining us, we're kind of unpacking this concept of the difference between emotion and feeling. And what we are finding out is that we just suddenly feel an emotion. We just feel something because our brain has interpreted the reality. Our brain has interpreted what's happening in our body. Our brain has interpreted something that's happening and has attached a meaning to it. Because that's what our human experience is we're always trying to define meaning. We're always trying to find meaning and refine and define it. And so mostly what happens in our brain is that it's guided mostly from how we sensed the situation and how we have a memory of a sense of that situation from the past. It can either be a conscious past, like I referred to a second ago when I was telling you about the physical response that I still feel in my body when I start thinking back to several consistent years of a very unhealthy, negative, abusive work relationship, verbally abusive, emotionally abusive work relationship that I had to work under as far as the leadership goes. And so that's what that sense of memory is, especially as adults, that we have, and our brain will interpret our emotions according to even that memory of those feelings, right? And what we can do is to start to try to approach that our emotion as mostly a reaction. Think of emotion as a reaction, and your feeling as your interpretation to that reaction. It's a little bit chunky, so let's sit with it for a second. Someone says something to me, Kristen, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't have any authority. You don't have any reason to be here. That automatically, like, I have an emotional response to that. And that emotion is the reaction that I have when someone says that to me. And then I start feeling negative about myself. I start feeling rejected. I start feeling not good enough. I start feeling all of these things because of words that were said to me in the past that happened over several years at a time that still triggers me into that feeling. And so whenever I get to that point, whenever you get to those points, and whatever your triggers are, I mean, it can be the tone of voice that your amygdala, you might be right, Alexis. It's a little part of the brain at the front of the brain, and we flip our lid. Okay, she might be right. But whenever you get to that point and you start to recognize, and I've that's part of what I've been working on personally over the past 2 years since I've been physically out of that work environment, is that I'm redefining my new normal. I'm working on learning how to choose a different feeling when someone says those kinds of things that were said to me in the past. And so whenever I'm able to, and a lot of times it takes a lot of steps, right? Someone says that thing to you that triggers you, you're in a conversation that's triggering you, you're having a internal thought about yourself because of something that happened in your family in the kitchen this morning. Step one, we talked about it last week, we have to calm ourselves down, because we can't get to redefining a new feeling until we're at a place of like, okay, this is a feeling, and it's a whole thought process. Redefining it and interpreting that feeling in a different way. Over time, and I'm just going to read this part because it's going to be a lot more powerful than my summary of it. And don't worry, I'll still pop in some stuff that whatever, who knows. So here it is. This is from High Performance Habits. The book itself, okay, I'll just read it. So over time, if I choose to create the feelings I want from my emotions, my brain will likely habituate to the new feelings. I could stop right there, and that already, like, that'll preach us all the way to next Sunday. Like, over time, if I choose to create the feelings I want from my emotions, my brain will likely habituate to the new feelings. So as I'm re-experiencing other kinds of negative talk, or I'm having these, fears, irrational or rational fears, I'm overwhelmed, I'm all of those things, that over time, if I choose to create a feeling that I want from my emotions, so my feeling could be fear at everything that's flying around in the world right now, but I can choose a different feeling. I can, yeah, I can choose. Now I'm getting confused. Is it the feeling or the emotion? Um, yes, I can choose a new feeling. Um, I can feel curious. I can feel unsure. Those are things that can come from, that can be right next to twins with fear, but the way that that emotion interprets in my body when I'm curious about, well, I don't know what's going to happen with all of this. And this can go pandemic or pre-life before pandemic or life after pandemic. Like, this can go for anything. Well, I can either be fearful every single day about what's probably going to happen, or I can be curious about it and say, I'm curious. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I could go and read all the things and spend my entire day being on all the news and all the tweets and all the things and in my day with a lot more knowledge. But does that take away my fear? Does that make me, no, it doesn't. Does it make me less curious? Well, I hope not, because I'm pretty sure that none of us can predict what's the future. None of us can predict an actual outcome. So when we get curious instead of fearful, I don't know. I wonder what would happen for you. I wonder what would happen for all of us. Second sentence. So, over time, if I choose to create the feelings I want from my emotions, my brain will likely habituate to the new feelings. Fear suddenly doesn't feel so bad anymore because my brain has learned that I'll deal with it well. My old references for how I feel after the emotion has changed, and that can change the actual automatic emotions power. Let me read that one again. That was weird. My old references for how I feel after the emotion has changed, and that can change the actual automatic emotions power. The emotion of fear still might get triggered, but now the feeling I sense from it is what I've created in the past. Emotions come and go. They're mostly immediate, instinctive, and physical, but feelings last, and they're often a result of rumination, which you have control over. Anger can be the emotion that comes up, but bitterness, which is a lasting feeling, doesn't have to be your lifelong sentence. This is from High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard. And this chapter here is on seeking clarity, and how when we seek clarity, we can envision the future. We know what the next step is, and it's the first habit that he labels. He has 6 habits of high performers. Wink, wink. There you go. And he talks about envisioning the future, which is ultimately what we did last week, and determining the feeling you're after, which is what we started with on Monday, and defining what's meaningful, that's part of the chapter that we may not get to. I don't know. Where I'm going off of what I'm hearing from you all. I'm going off of what I, sense, and the connections that I am experiencing, whether that's in, my family or in the virtual part. So all that to say, it's I'm I'm trying to decide, like, if I would have even picked this book up 2 years ago. I don't think I would have, because I think I would have been like, ugh, high performance habits is too much work. I can't start all these new habits. But as you can see, what we just unpacked together is that, it has so much to do with what all of us are experiencing in our life, in our human experience. And even more so during this unsure time that we have together. This is page 81, and I'll type some of it up if you're interested in it. So let me just read that last part again, and we can leave off with that. So, over time, if I choose to create the feelings I want from my emotions, my brain will likely habituate to the new feelings. Fear suddenly doesn't feel so bad anymore because my brain has learned that I'll deal with it well. My old references for how I feel after the emotion has changed, and that can change the actual automatic emotion's power. The emotion of fear still might get triggered, but now the feeling I sense from it is what I've created in the past. Emotions come and go. They're mostly immediate, instinctive, and physical, but feelings last. and they're often a result of rumination, which you have control over. Anger can be the emotion that comes up, but bitterness, a lasting feeling, doesn't have to be your lifelong sentence. My automatic emotions don't have to be in charge. My feelings are my own. I hope that was something that gave you some strength or something to ponder. Go easier on yourself. Every day, or at least for today, I'd like to I wonder what kind of shifts you would notice and observe in your experience with your families and friends. Got a lot of my Dubai peeps on here. I know they're finishing up their day today. It's 7 p.m. Yeah, so almost 8 p.m. there. But I'm wondering, if you start tomorrow, for those of us here in Dallas, it's almost 11 a.m. We've got the rest of the day ahead of us. If you're finishing your day, whatever place that you're at, I wonder what sort of experience shift you would have if you were to think about what do I want to feel today? We've been experiencing a lot of emotions, a lot of emotions, and there's a lot of feelings that we want to experience in our life instead of emotions. So I'll leave you with this. Ponder, consider when you're in conversations, when you are with the people that you love, when you're feeling all the feelings, that you ask yourself, what do I want to feel? What do I want to feel in this conversation? What do I want to feel today? And possibly you'll start to shift towards having a way to handle the next time a negative emotional feeling comes up. What are some things you can say to yourself? That's not something I can necessarily be inside of your head. If I could, I would, but I can't. And I don't think I would want to be anyways. I don't want you inside of my head. Oh Lord. So, yes, I'm going to end with that and also say thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that you found something that was real, that was inspirational, that you could learn from, and something that we say at New Minds on newminds.tv and on our team is that we hope you're always able to pursue your passions until they become your talent. Have a wonderful evening and rest of the day. Bye, y'all. Oh, I have music. Yeah.